Chapter 24. Maud Ivory planted her wispy frame squarely in front of Lucy Gray. She scrunched her face and balled her hand into fists. "You get out of here, Billy Top. None of us want you here." Billy Top rocked slightly as he surveyed the group. "Less want than need, Maud Ivory." "Don't need you neither. Go on, get it. Take your weasel girl with you," ordered Maud Ivory. Lucy Gray encircled her with her arm, pressing her hand against the little girl's chest, either to soothe or restrain her. "You're all sounding thin. You're sounding thin," slurred Billy Top, and one hand slapped his instrument. "We can do without you, Billy Top. You made your choice. Now leave us be," said Barb Azor, her quiet voice underlaid with steel. Tam Amber said nothing but gave a small nod of assent. Pain flashed across Billy Top's face. "Is that how you feel, Cece?" Clerk Carmine curdled his fiddle and close to his body. Although the cubby varied in complexion, hair, and features, Coriolanus noticed a distinct resemblance between these two. Brothers, maybe? "You can come with me. We do all right, we two," Billy Top pleaded. But Clerk Carmine stood his ground. "All right, then. Don't need you. Never needed any of you anyhow. Never will. Always did better on my own." A couple of peacekeepers began to close in on him. The one who'd given Lucy Gray the bottle of white liquor laid a hand on his arm. "Come on now, show's over." Billy Top jerked away from his touch and then gave him a drunken shove. In an instant, the sociable mood in the hob changed. Coriolanus could feel the tension sharp as a knife. Miners who either ignored him or given him nods over the bottles became belligerent. The peacekeeper straightened up, suddenly alert, and he found his own body almost standing at attention. As a half-dozen peacekeepers moved in on Billy Top, he felt the miner surge forward. He was readying himself for the brawl that was sure to follow when someone pulled the plug on the light, sending the hob into blackness. Everything froze for an instant, then chaos erupted. A fist caught Coriolanus' mouth, sending his own fists into action. He struck out arbitrarily, focused only on securing his own circle of safety. The same immobileness he experienced when the tributes had hunted him down and the arena swept over him. Dr. Gall's voice echoed in his ears. "That's mankind's natural state, this humanity undressed." Here was naked humanity again, and here again he was part of it, punching, kicking, his teeth buried in the darkness. A horn outside the hob blared repeatedly, and truck headlights flooded the area by the door. Whistles blew, and voices shouted for the dispersal of the crowd. People lurched towards the exit. Coriolanus fought the wave, trying to locate Lucy Gray, but then decided the best chance of finding her would be out front. He jostled his way through the bodies, still throwing the occasional punch, and spilled out into the night air, where the locals took flight and the peacekeepers gathered in a loose bunch, making only a weak show of pursuit. Most of them not even been on duty, and there was no organized unit to address the spontaneous eruption. In the dark, nobody was even sure who they'd been fighting. Better to let it lie. Coriolanus found it unnerving, though, unlike at the hanging, the miners had fought back. Sucking on a split lip, he positioned himself to watch the door, but the last stragglers wandered out without any sign of Lucy Gray, the cubby, or even Billy Top. He felt frustrated at having been so close but unable to talk to her. Was there another exit to the hob? Yes. He remembered a door by the stage which must have allowed them to slip out. Mayfair Lip had not been so fortunate. She stood flanked by peacekeepers, not under arrest, but not free to go either. "I've done nothing wrong. You've got no right to hold me," she spat at the soldiers. "Sorry, miss," said a peacekeeper. "For your own protection, we can't let you go home alone. Either you let us escort you, or we call your father for further instructions." The mention of her father shut Mayfair up, but did not improve her attitude. She seethed, her lips pressed into the thin, mean line that said someone was going to pay. Just give him time. There did seem to be much enthusiasm for the task of taking her home, and Coriolanus and Shadinus found themselves recruited for the job either because they made a good showing at the hanging, or because they were both relatively sober. 2 officers and the other peacekeepers made up the rest of the party. "At this hour, what with the climate, it's probably better to be on the safe side," one officer said. "It's not far." As they wove through the streets, their boots grinding against the grate, Coriolanus squinted in the darkness. Street lights illuminated the capital, but here he had to rely on the sporadic flickers from the windows and the pale beams of the moon. Unarmed, without even the protection of his white uniform, he felt vulnerable and stuck close to the group. The officers had guns, hopefully that would keep the assailants at bay. He remembered the grandma's words. "Your own father used to say these people only drank water because it didn't rain blood. You ignored that at your own peril, Coriolanus." Were they out now, watching and waiting for a chance to quench their thirst? He missed the safety of the base. Fortunately, after only a few blocks, the streets opened up on a deserted square, which he realized was the location of the annual reaping. A few unevenly spaced floodlights helped him navigate the cobblestones under his feet. "I can get home fine from here," said Mayfair. "We're in no hurry," one of the officers told her. "Why don't you just leave me alone?" snapped Mayfair. "Why don't you just stop running around with that good-for-nothing?" suggested the officer. "Trust me, that won't end well." "Mind your business," she retorted. They made a diagonal cross, left the square, and followed a freshly paved road to the next street over. The party drew to a halt at a large house that might count for a mansion in District 12, but would be unremarkable in the capital. Through the windows, wide open in the August heat, Coriolanus caught glimpses of well-lit, furnished rooms in which humming electric fans fluttered the curtains. His nose picked up a whiff of the evening's dinner, ham, he thought, causing his mouth to water slightly and thinning out the bloody taste from his lip. Maybe it's just as well he missed Lucy Gray. His lips were in no shape for a kiss. As one of the officers laid down a hand on the gate, Mayfair pushed past him, darted up the path, and slipped into the house. "Should we tell your parents?" asked the other. "What's the point? You know who the mayor is. Somehow his traipsing around at night will be our fault. I can do without the lecture." The other muttered agreement, and the party headed back to across the square. As Coriolanus followed, a soft mechanical wheeze caught his attention, and he turned to the shadowy bushes that lined the side of the house. He could just make out a figure standing motionless in the gloom, back pressed against the wall. A light on the second floor flipped on, and the yellow glow extended down, revealing Billy Top, nose bloodied, scowling directly at him. He held his instrument, the source of the wheeze, against his chest. Coriolanus' lips parted to alert the others, but something held his tongue. What was it? Fear, indifference, uncertainty as to how Lucy Gray would react? The band had made their position clear when it came to his rival, and yet he didn't know how they would take Coriolanus' ratting him out, possibly landing him in jail. What if it made Billy Top a sympathetic character, someone they would rally around and forgive? He could tell that if the Covey loyalties ran deep. Then again, perhaps they would welcome it, particularly Lucy Gray, who might be very interested to know that her old flame had run to the mayor's daughter's house for solace. What he had done to be ousted from all the things Covey banned at home. He remembered the final words to her song, her ballad from the interview. "Too bad I'm the bet that you lost in the reaping. Now what will you do when I go to my grave?" Surely the answer lay there. Mayfair appeared and closed the window. Then she drew the curtain, blocking the light and concealing Billy Top. The bushes rustled, and the moment passed. "Corio," said Janus, returning from... "You coming?" Sorry, just lost in thought," said Coriolanus. So Janus nodded to the house. "It reminds me of the capital." "You don't say home," Coriolanus pointed out. "No, for me, that will always be District 2, Janus confirmed, but it doesn't matter. Probably never see that place again." As they walked back, Coriolanus wondered about his own odds of seeing the capital again before Sejanus came. He thought they were at 0, but if he could return as an officer, maybe a war hero, things might be different. Of course, he'd need war to excel in, just as Sejanus needed one in order to be a medic. Coriolanus' shoulders relaxed when the gates of the base closed behind him. He washed his face and crawled in his bunk above beanpoles and inebriated snores. His pulse beat in his swollen lips as he replayed the evening. It had all gone like a dream, seeing Lucy Gray, hearing her sing, heard the joy to see the sight of him, until Billy Tope had showed up and spoiled the reunion. It was just another reason to hate Billy Tope, although seeing Covey's rejection of him was steeply satisfying. It confirmed that Lucy Gray belonged to him. Sunday breakfast brought the bad news. Because of the previous evening's altercation, no soldier was to leave the base. The higher-ups were even considering placing the hob off limits. Smiley, Bug, and Beanpole, although hungover and bruised from the night before, bemoaned the state of things, having nothing to look forward to if their Saturday outings were cancelled. So Janus only cared because Coriolanus cared, recognizing that this was just one more hurdle to seeing Lucy Gray. "Maybe she'll visit you here," he suggested as they cleared the trays. "Can she do that?" Coriolanus asked. And then hoped she wouldn't, even if she could. He had little unscheduled time, and where would he even be allowed to talk? The fence? How would that be viewed? Caught up as he had been in a romance the previous evening, he'd been planning to greet her publicly with a kiss, but in hindsight, that would have brought a barrage of questions from his bunkmates, and doubtless raised a few eyebrows among the officers. Their whole history included his forced enlistment would come out, and his cheating in the games. In addition, given the troubles between the locals and the peacekeepers, it would be wise to keep their relationship private. Whispering through the fence might encourage rumors that he was a rebel sympathizer or even worse, a spy. No, if they were going to meet, he would have to do it to go to her secretly. Today would be a rare opportunity to track her down, but he'd need a buddy to leave the base. "I think we'd better keep things between us secret. She might get in trouble if she came here," said Janus. "Did you have plans today, or..." "She lives in a place called the Seam," said Janus, "near the woods." "What?" said Coriolanus. "I asked one of the miners last night, very casually," Janus smiled. "Don't worry, he was too drunk to remember, and yes, I'd be happy to go with you." Janus told the bunkmates that they were heading into town to see if they could swap a pack of Capital chewing gum for paper, but the ruse proved unnecessary as all the mates took their abused bodies back to their bunks right after breakfast. Coriolanus wished he had money for a gift of some kind, but he had no nary a cent. As they passed the mess hall on their way out, his eyes fell on the ice machine. He had an idea. In this hot weather, the soldiers were permitted to take ice freely for their drinks or to cool off. Rubbing cubes over their bodies provided a little relief in the sauna of the kitchen. Cuckoo, who he'd won over with a diligent dishwashing, gave Coriolanus an old plastic bag. The day being so hot, he agreed it would be all right to take some ice on their outing to ward off heat stroke. Coriolanus didn't know if Covey had a freezer, but by the looks of the houses he passed on his way to hanging, he thought he might be a luxury few could afford. Anyway, the ice was free, and he didn't want to go empty-handed. They signed out of the gate, where the guard cautioned them to be careful, and walked off in what they remembered to be the general direction of the town square. Coriolanus felt apprehensive. With the mine shut down for the day, the hush lay over the district, and the few people they passed ignored them. Only a small bakery stood open in the town square, its doors propped wide to allow a breeze to temper the heated ovens. The owner, a beat-faced woman, had little interest in providing directions to non-paying customers, so Janus bartered his fancy chewing gum for a loaf of bread. Relenting, she took them out on the square and pointed out the street they were to follow to the Seam. Beyond the town center, the Seam sprawled out for miles, the regular streets quickly dissolving into a web of bunks right after breakfast. Coriolanus wished he had money for a gift of some kind, but he hadn't nary a cent. As they passed the mess hall on the way out, his eyes fell on the ice machine. He had an idea. In this hot weather, the soldiers were permitted to take the ice freely for their... Wait, Oh, it didn't change, that's why. Silly. Beyond the town center, the seam sprawled out for miles. Its regular streets quickly dissolving into a web of smaller, unmarked lanes that rose up and then petered out for no discernible reason. Some boasted rows of worn, identical houses, others had makeshift structures that would be general to call shacks. Many homes were shored up, patched up, and broken down to their original framework with nothing but a memory. Many others had been abandoned and scavenged for their parts. With no grid, no landmark of note, Coriolanus lost his bearings almost immediately, and his unease returned. Once in a while they passed someone sitting on their stoop or in the shade of their homes. None of them looked the least bit friendly. The only sociable creatures were the gnats, whose fascination with his injured lip required constant shooing. As the sun beat down on them, condensation from the melting bag of ice left a splotch in his left band leg. Coriolanus' enthusiasm began dissolving as well. The intoxication he experienced the night before in the hob, the heady mix of liquor and yearning, seemed like a feverish dream now. Maybe this was a bad idea. Really? Asked Sejanus. I'm pretty sure we're headed in the right direction. You see those trees over there? Coriolanus made out a fringe of green in the distance. He trudged along, thinking with the fondness of his bunk and remembering that Sunday meant fried bologna and potatoes. Maybe he was not cut out to be a lover. Maybe he was more of a loner at heart. Coriolanus, no, more loner than lover. One thing about Billy Top, he reeked of passionate feelings. Is that what Lucy Gray wanted? Passion, music, liquor, moonlight, and a wild boy who embraced them all? Not a perspiring peacekeeper showing up at her door on a Sunday morning with a split lip and a sagging bag of ice. He gave word the lead to Sejanus, following him up and down cinder paths without comment. Eventually his companion would grow tired and they could go back and catch up their letter writing. Sejanus, Tigris, his faculty, and all of them had been dead wrong about him. He'd never been motivated by love or ambition, only the desire to get his prize and a nice, quiet, bureaucratic job, pushing papers around and leaving him plenty of time to attend tea parties. Cowardly and what did Dean Highbottom call him? Oh yeah, vapid like his mother. What a disappointment he'd have been to Crassus Xanthus Stone. Listen, said Sejanus, catching his arm. Coriolanus paused and lifted his head. A high-pitched voice pierced the morning air with a melancholy tune. What, ivory? They made for the source of the music. At the end of the path, at the edge of the seam, a small wooden house tilted at a precarious angle, like a tree in a stiff wind. The dirt patch at the front was deserted, so they picked their way around the clump of wildflowers in various states of bloom and decay that appeared to have been transplanted without much rhyme or reason. When they reached the back of the house, they discovered Maud Ivory sitting on a makeshift stoop in an old dress 2 sizes too big for her. She was cracking nuts on a cinder block with a rock, beating time to her song. Oh, my darling, crack. Oh, my darling, crack. Oh, my darling, Clementine, crack. She looked up and grinned when she saw him. I know you. Brushing the stray nutshells from her frock, she ran into the house. Coriolanus wiped his face in his sleeve, hoping his lip wouldn't be looked too bad when Lucy Gray appeared. Instead, Maud Ivory came out with a sleepy Barbazor, who had twisted her hair up in a hasty knot. Like Maud Ivory, she changed her costume for a dress you might see anyone in District 12. Good morning, she said. You looking for Lucy Gray? He's her friend from the Capitol, Maud Ivory reminded her, the one who introduced her on TV. Only he's near bald now. He gave me the popcorn balls. Well, we certainly enjoyed those and appreciate it for all you did for Lucy Gray, said Barbazor. I'll expect you'll find her down in the meadow. That's where she goes early to work so as not to disturb the neighbors. I'll show you. Let me? But Ivory hopped off the porch and took Coriolanus' hand as if they were old friends. This way. With no younger siblings or other relatives, Coriolanus had little experience with kids, but it made him feel special the way she attached herself to him, the cool little hand pressing trustingly to his. So you saw me on the TV. Just the one night. It was clear, and Tam Amber was used a lot of foil. Usually we can't get anything but static, but it was special we even have a TV, explained Maud Ivory. Most don't. Not that there's much to watch, but the boring news will anyways. Dr. Gall could go on all she wanted about engaging the people in the Hunger Games, but practically no one in the districts had a working TV. The impact would be confined to the reaping which everyone gathered in the public. While they walked towards the woods, Maud Ivory rattled on about the TV show that night before and the fight that followed. So sorry he got punched, she said, pointing to his lip. That's Billy Top, though. Where he goes, trouble follows. Is he your brother? Asked Janus. No. He's a Clade. Him and Clerk Carmine are brothers. The rest of us are all Baird cousins. The girls, I mean, and Tam Amber's lost soul, said Maud Ivory matter-of-factly. So Lucy Gray didn't have a monopoly of a strange manner of talking. It must be a Cubby thing. A lost soul? Asked Coriolanus. Sure, the Cubby found Tam Amber when she was just a baby. Somebody left him in a cardboard box on the side of the road, so he's ours. Joke's on them, too, because he's the finest picker alive. Maud Ivory declared, not much of a talker, though. Is that nice? Coriolanus swung at a mission clump of cubes, what's left of it. Oh, Lucy Gray would like that. We've got a fridge, but the freezer's long broke, said Maud Ivory. Seems fancy to have ice in summertime, like flowers in wintertime. Rare. Coriolanus agreed. My grandmother grows roses in winter. People make a big fuss over them. Lucy Gray said you smelled like roses, said Maud Ivory. Is your whole house full of them? She grows them on the roof, Coriolanus told her. The roof? Giggled Maud Ivory. That's a silly place for flowers. Don't they slide off? It's a flat roof up high, with lots of sunlight, so you can see the whole Capitol from there. Lucy Gray didn't like the Capitol. They tried to kill her, said Maud Ivory. Yes, he acknowledged. Couldn't have been very nice for her. She said you were the only good thing about it, and now you're here. Maud Ivory gave his hand a tug. Are you going to stay here, right? That's the plan, said Coriolanus. I'm glad I like you. That'll make her happy, she said. By this time, the three had reached the edge of the large field that dipped down to the woods. Unlike the weedy expanse in front of the hanging trees, this one had a clean, fresh high grass and swaths of bright wildflowers. There she is with Seamus. What Ivory pointed to a lone figure in a rock wearing a dress of her namesake color. Lucy Gray sat with her back to them, her head bent over her guitar. Seamus? Who's Seamus? Another member of the Cubby? Or had he misread Billy Tope's role in her life, and Seamus was the lover? Coriolanus put a hand above his eyes to shield them from the sunlight, but could make out only her figure. Seamus? She's our goat. Don't be fooled by the boy's name. She can give a gallon a day when she's fresh, said Maud Ivory. We're trying to skim enough cream for butter, but it takes forever. Oh, I love butter, said Sejanus. That reminds me, I forgot to give you this bread. Did you have your breakfast already? It's a fact I didn't, said Maud Ivory, eyeing the loaf with interest. Sejanus handed it over. What do you say we head back to the house and break into this now? Maud Ivory tucked the bread under her arm. What about Lucy Gray and this one? She asked, nodding at Coriolanus. They can join us after they've caught up, said Sejanus. Okay, she agreed, transferring her hand to Jane Janus's. Barbara's might make us wait for them. You could help me shell nuts first if you want. There's last year's, but nobody's gotten sick yet. Well, that's the best offer I've had in a long time, said James turned to Coriolanus. See you later. Coriolanus felt self-conscious. Do I look okay? Cord, just trust me. That works for you, soldier, said Janus, and he headed back towards the house of Maud Ivory. Coriolanus gave a hair swipe and waded into the meadow. He'd never walked in such high grass, and the sensations of its tickling fingertips added to his nervousness. It far exceeded his hopes, getting to meet up with her in private in a flower-filled field with the whole day ahead. Just the opposite of what the rushed encounter in the filthy hop would have been. This was, for lack of better words, romantic. He moved forward as quietly as possible. As a rule, she mystified him, and he welcomed a chance to observe her with her usual defenses in place. Drawn closer, he took in the song she sang as she quietly strummed her guitar. Are you coming to the tree where they strung up a man, they said, murdered three? Strange things did happen here, and no stranger would it be if we met up at the midnight in the hanging tree. He didn't recognize it, but it brought to mind the hanging of a rebel 2 days before. Had she been there? Had it prompted this? Are you coming to the tree where the dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here. No stranger would it be if we met up at the midnight in the hanging tree. Ah, yes, it was Harlow's hanging, because who else would a dead man call out for his love to flee? Run, run, Lil, run. You need that. You need those unnatural mockingjays for that, but who was she inviting to meet her in the tree? Could it be him? Maybe she planned to sing this next Saturday as a secret message for him to meet her at a midnight hanging the tree. Not that he could, as he'd never be allowed off the base at that hour, but she probably didn't know that. Lucy Gray hummed now, testing out different chords behind the melody while he admired the curve of her neck, the fineness of her skin. As he drew nearer, his foot landed on an old branch which broke with a sharp snap. She sprang from the rock, twisting her body as she rose, her eyes wide with fear, and the guitar held out as if to block a blow. For a moment she thought she'd flee, but her arm shifted to relief at the sight of him. She shook her head as close as she'd ever seemed to her, embarrassed, as she propped her guitar against the rock. Sorry, still got one foot in the arena. If his brief foray into the games had left a nervous nightmare, she could only imagine how damaged she was. The last month had upended their lives and changed them irrecoverably. Sad, really, as they were both rather exceptional people for whom the world had reserved such a street. Yes, it leaves quite an impression, he said. They stood for a moment, drinking each other in before they moved together. The bag of ice slid from his hand as she wrapped her arms around him, melting her body into his. He locked her in embrace, remembering how scared he'd been for her and for himself, and how he hadn't dared fantasize about this moment, as it had seemed so unattainable. But here they were, safe in beautiful meadow, 2,000 miles away from the arena. Awash in daylight, but none between them. You found me, she said. In District 12 and Patem and the world itself, never mind, it didn't matter, you knew I would. Hoped you would. Didn't know. The odds didn't seem in my favor. She leaned back enough to free a hand and brushed his lips with her fingers. He felt the calluses from her guitar strings, the soft surrounding skin as she examined the previous night's injury. Then, almost shyly, she kissed him, sending shock waves through his body. Ignoring the pain in his lips, he responded, hungry and curious, every nerve in his body awake. He kissed her until his lips started to bleed a little and would have kept going had she not pulled away. Here, she said, come in the shade. The remaining ice cracked under his foot and he retreated. Phew. Why, thank you, Lucy Gray drew him over to sit at the base of the rock. Taking the bag, she bit off a corner of the plastic to make a tiny hole and lifted high to let the melted ice water drip into her mouth. Ah, this must be the only cold thing in this side of November. Her hand squeezed the bag, sending a slight spray over her face. It's wonderful. Lean back. He tilted his head back and felt the soft drizzle over his lips, licking it off just in time for another long kiss. Then she drew up her knees and said, So, Coriolanus Snow, what are you doing in my meadow? What indeed? Just spending some time with my girl, he answered. I can hardly believe it. Lucy Gray surveyed the meadow. Nothing since the reaping has seemed very real, and the games were just a nightmare. For me, too, he said, but I want to hear what happened to you off camera. They sat side by side, shoulder ribs, hips pressed together, hands entwined, exchanging stories as they shared the ice water. Lucy Gray began with an account of the opening days of the games when she'd hidden with a progressively more rabid Jessup. We kept moving from spot to spot in those tunnels. It's like a maze down there. Poor Jessup getting sicker and crazier by the minute. That first night we bedded down near the entrance. That was you, wasn't it, who came to move Marcus? It was me and Sejanus. He snuck into, well, I'm not even sure what, to make some sort of statement. They sent me in to retrieve him, Coriolanus explained. Was it you killed Bobbin? She asked quietly. He nodded. I didn't have a choice, and then 3 of the others tried to kill me. Her face darkened. I know. I could hear them boasting when they came back from the turnstiles. I thought you might be dead. It scared me. The thought of using you. I didn't draw a breath until you sent in water. And you know what every moment was like for me, Corlina said. You were all I could think about. You too, she flexed her fingers. I clutched that compact so hard you could see the imprint of the rose on my palm. He caught her hand and kissed the palm. I wanted to help so I wanted so badly to help, and I felt useless. She caressed his cheek. Oh, no, I could feel you looking out for me with the water, the food, and believe me, taking out Bobbin was major, even though I know it must have been awful for you. It sure was for me. Lucy Gray admitted to the 3 of her own kills for Swovia, although that had not been targeted. She merely positioned a bottle of water with a few swallows and a bit of powder as if it had been dropped accidentally in the tunnels. And Wolvie, who had been the one to find it, I was gunning for Coral, she claimed. Reaper, whose puddle she'd poisoned, had contracted rabies when Jessup spat in the eye in the zoo. So that was really a mercy killing. I spared him what Jessup went through, and taking out Treach with that viper was self-defense. Still not sure why those snakes love me so. Not convinced it was my singing. Snakes don't ever hear well. So we told her about the lab, Clementia, and Dr. Gall's plan to release the snakes in the arena and how he secretly dropped his father's handkerchief into the tank so they could become accustomed to her scent. But they found it, loaded with DNA from both of us. And that's why you're here? Not the rat poison in the compact? She asked. Yes, he said. You covered beautifully for me on that one. I did my best, she'd consider things for a minute. Well, that's it. And I saved you from the fire, and you saved me from mistakes. We're responsible for each other's lives now. Are we? He asked. Sure, she said. You're mine, and I'm yours. It's written in the stars. No escaping that. He leaned over and kissed her, flushed with happiness, because all he did believe in celestial writing she did, and that would be enough to guarantee her loyalty. Not that his own loyalty was in question. If he hadn't fallen in love with any of the girls in the capital, it was unlikely District 12 could offer much else in the way of temptation. A strange sensation in his neck called for attention. He found Seamus, sampling his collar. Oh, hello. Can I help you, madam? Lucy Gray laughed. Happens you can if you're mind to. She needs milking. Milking, Not sure where to begin, he said. With a bucket up at the house, she squirted a bit of ice water in Seamus's direction and released the collar. Tearing the bag, she took out the last couple of cubes, popping one in Coriolanus' mouth and one in her own. Sure is nice to have ice this time, luxury in summer and a cursed winter. Can't you just ignore it? Asked Coriolanus. Not around here. In January, our pipes froze, and we had to melt down ice chunks for water on the stove. For 6 people and a goat, you'd be surprised how much work that takes. It was better once the snow came. That melts pretty quickly. Lucy Gray took Seamus's lead rope and picked up her guitar. I got it. Coriolanus reached for the instrument. Then he wondered if she trusted him with it. Lucy Gray easily handled it over, not as much as the one pluribus loaned us, but it pays for our keep. Only thing is we're running low on strings, and the homemade ones don't cut it. Do you think if I wrote to him, he could send me a few? I bet he has some left over from when he ran his club. I can pay. I've still got most of the money Dean Highbottom gave me. Coriolanus stopped his tracks. Dean Highbottom gave you money? He did, but it was kind of on the quiet. First he apologized for what I've been through, then he stuffed a lot of cash in my pocket. Glad to have it. The cubby didn't perform while I was gone. Too shook up about losing me. Anyway, I can pay for those strings if he's on a mind to help. Coriolanus promised to ask in his next letter, but the news of Dean Highbottom's covert generosity threw him. Why would evil incarnate help his girlfriend? Respect, pity, guilt, morphling-induced whimsy? He mulled it over as they made their way to her front porch, where she hedged Seamus to a post. Come on in, meet the family. Lucy Gray took his hand and led him to the door. How's Tigris? I wish I could have thanked her in person for the soap in my dress. Now that I'm home, I mean to send her a letter and maybe a song if I came up with something good enough. She'd like that, said Coriolanus. Things aren't going well at home. I'm sure they miss you. Is it more than that? She asked. Before he could answer, they entered the house. It consisted of one large open room and what seemed to be a sleeping area up in the loft. Along the back, a coal stove, a sink, shelf, dishware, and an ancient refrigerator designated the kitchen. A rack of costumes lined the right wall. There were collections of instruments to the left, an old TV with an oversized antenna that branched out like antlers, rigged with twisted pieces of aluminum foil set on a crate. Other than some chairs and a table, the place was bare of furniture. Tam Amber leaned back in one of the chairs, holding the mandolin in his lap, but not playing. Clerk Carmine hung his head off the loft, gazing unhappily at Barbazor and Maud Ivory, who seemed to have worked herself into a state of indignation. At the sight of them, she shot across the floor and started pulling Lucy Gray towards the window that looked out over the backyard. Lucy Gray, he's making trouble again. You let him in? Lucy Gray asked, seeming to know what she meant. No, said he just wanted to rest the rest of his stuff. We threw it out back, said Barbazor, her arms crossed in disapproval. So what's the problem? Lucy Gray spoke, but calmly, but Coriolanus could feel her grip tighten. That, said Barbazor, nodding at the back window. Still in tow, Coriolanus followed Lucy Gray and looked into the backyard. Maud Ivory wriggled in between them. So Janus is supposed to be helping with the nuts. Billy Top knelt on the ground, a pile of clothes and a few books beside him. He was talking rapidly as he scraped out some kind of picture in the dirt. Periodically, he gestured, pointing this way and that, across from down on his knee. So Janus listened intently, nodding in an understanding and occasionally throwing in a question. While the sight of Bully Top in what he now considered his territory annoyed him, Coriolanus did not see much cause for concern. He could not imagine what he and Sejanus had to discuss. Perhaps they found some mutual grievance, like how their families didn't understand them, to whine about. Are you worried about Sejanus? He's fine. He can talk to anybody. Coriolanus tried but failed to make out Billy Top's picture in the dirt. What's he drawing? Looks like he's giving him some sort of direct direction, said Barbazor, relieving him the guitar. And if I'm right, your friend needs to go home. I'll take care of it. Lucy Gray started to release Coriolanus' hand, but he hung on. Thanks, but you don't have to deal with all my baggage. It's in the stars, I guess, Coriolanus said with a smile. It was time anyway that he confronted Billy Top and laid down a few rules. Billy Top had to accept that Lucy Gray was no longer his, but belonged firmly and for always to Coriolanus. Lucy Gray didn't answer, but she stopped trying to free her hand. As they walked quietly through the open back door, the brightness of the August sun now climbing her high in the sky made him squint. So engrossed was the pair that it was not until he and Lucy Gray stood directly over him that Billy Top reacted, swiping the picture from the dirt with his hand. Without Barbazor's tip-off, Coriolanus might have been clueless, but as it was, he recognized the image almost immediately. It was a map of the base. Interesting.